Welcome back to the Tasty Brains podcast with your host, Paulie Donuts, and special guest, Shamus Flynn. Shamus, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. Paulie, how you been, man? It's been a while since we've seen each other in person.
It has. It's been a hot minute. First, by way of your brother being very fit and strong, we finally got to meet. And then I think another time at his house, most likely. That's our connector is your brother, who is my regular guest on my Tasty Brains podcast show, Mason Flynn, who is a big fella. But like before we started the podcast, you told me, not so big with the gun, huh? Not such a good shooter, or he is?
Oh, well, he has this. He does have a pretty impressive ability to pick up any iron-sighted rifle and shoot at distance. I'll say that.
That's a good brother right there, sticking up for his brother. Who's older, you or him?
I'm older. I'm older by a year and a half.
Oh, nice. All right, good. So you beat him down.
Yeah, not quite Irish twins, but close, right?
Before we get ahead of ourselves, if you could give a quick little intro so people know who they're listening to, because I always fuck up and we'll get 20 minutes in and people are like, who is this guy? So go ahead and let people know who you are. Everyone knows you're Shamus Flynn, but what do you do now and what you're about a little bit?
For sure, yeah. Shamus Flynn. I'm a United States Marine, have been one for just about 20 years now. My dad, my husband, from New England, Granby, Connecticut specifically.
Go Patriots.
Yep, go Patriots. I'm not a redcoat trader down there in Southern Connecticut for the Jets, but yeah, man, I'm currently transitioning into retirement from the military, looking at getting into operations, logistics management in a pretty big concrete company in east of Dallas, which is interesting because I grew up in a small construction company that our old man owns and has owned for 40 years now, and did a little bit of concrete with him. So it's kind of cool to transition back into something that I can at least speak a little bit of the language. And I did transportation and transportation maintenance while I was in for the majority of my career. So it's a pretty good way to transition. And honestly, like, I just took a shot, emailed the company, got a face-to-face with them, and they were all about it.
Wow.
I'm utilizing the DoD Skill Bridge program, which we should definitely get into that transition program. But yeah, again, I'm a dad. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, married for 14 years to Crystal, and we've been together for about 15 years.
Man, so most of your career.
Yeah, she was with me for 75% of my career. And yeah, I have a side business, which it is a business. It's more of a learning process at this point. It's called Constellation Group. A few years back, I started an Instagram page kind of based around military leadership. And it was really in direct response to a lot of the negativity surrounding the military that was kind of being showcased online. And honestly, man, I figured, like, I've had a pretty diverse career. I like to stay fit. I like to shoot. I like to be well-rounded. As they say, whole Marine concept, like, why not? I'll just start putting some stuff out there, and it worked out pretty well. And I kind of always had the intention that I wanted to do a side business, teaching civilians of every walk of life, firearms, fundamentals, safety, implementation, marksmanship, and really the true reason why we have the Second Amendment and the Bill of Rights, right? Mm-hmm. I really believe in that. New England guy, Minuteman, right? Lexington and Concord, like that kind of thing, right? So honestly, that right now, I have a business partner. His name's Victor Hurd. He's a retired chief warrant officer, and really right now we're kind of in like the learn, train, stay relevant mentality, where one of the key phrases in the gun industry right now is knowledge transfer, and I really like that, right? Because there's so many high performing, highly trained individuals out there that are pushing info from their military, law enforcement, or competition backgrounds on to the new shooter population, Victor and I kind of look at it as a knowledge collaboration thing,
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, I wasn't a high level soft guy at all. I was a mechanic and a marksmanship instructor. I've got some experience downrange, but the way I look at it, the way Victor and I look at it is, no matter who the student is, it can be a knowledge collaboration, right? Like we can learn from a new shooter because they come in with a new perspective, right? Um, I can learn from anybody who's proficient, right? If
Sure.
if if a big name in the industry puts a YouTube video out there that has quality content and is teaching me something, I don't really care what their background is if they can teach me more accurate and efficient, and fast, right? Fast, accurate, efficient, right? And that's not necessarily any particular order, right?
Of course.
Accuracy is final. So, yeah, that's me, man.
How long is that group? How long have you had that group, the Constellation group?
3 years for the page and about 1 year for our LLC. So,
Okay. And you're training all walks of life people.
yeah, that's the plan. So, right now we're essentially in our learning phase, kind of post military career, right? So
Mm-hmm.
looking to get into civilian organizations who provide training, right? Taylor Strategic, Orion Training Group, just a couple that we have our eyes on that we want to attend those classes, right? Um,
Gotcha.
to kind of round out our curriculum itself. If Victor and I are absolutely qualified to teach the fundamentals, teach accuracy, teach mindset, right? And we do that via some online content, and then people that we meet at the range or friends of ours, family, associates, things like that. Offering full on classes, it's probably not going to be a reality until about fall timeframe 2024.
Okay.
And then in that case, we start looking at fundamentals, right? We're not really looking to have whiz bang stuff. The word tactical is a little broad in our opinion.
I was
So
going to ask you about that. Obviously there's levels to everything in life, and especially with weapons. And more often than not these days, I feel like everyone wants to either be, fucking name your Navy SEAL show guy, and you have those people, and then you have the people that actually are those people, and then you have the people that never have touched a gun in their life, that are not from a military background, but they're like, hey, maybe I need to kind of figure this shit out. At least I want to know. Maybe I don't even want to own a gun. I just want to be able to know how to use one. Worst case, something happens. Or if my kid, God forbid, is at a house and, hey, Dad, Joey had a really cool gun and you don't know shit about it. You're kind of, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Do you have like different levels of obviously levels of the course, but the tactical portion is, obviously where every cool guy, wants to be doing, curving bullets and shit, until it's time to curve the bullets, if you know
well,
what I mean.
yeah, and again, the word tactical is a real broad word, and the word tactical, infers that there's some type of tactics involved, right? And I mean, essentially, there's probably tactics involved with any type of, movement with any type of weapon, right?
Of course.
That's your plan, your daily plan. But we don't. The last thing we want to do is have like, claim that this level of firearms training is tactical rifle, right? And even enhanced in other words, such as you just got to be kind of careful around, right? Because uh, in at the end of the day, what are we teaching somebody to do? Use the example of a brand new firearms owner or somebody who's considering firearms purchase and wants to get training first, which is probably the smart way to go. In a state that allows you to do that, some states are kind of wacky. Um, so you've got an individual who wants to get some training. Well, needs to understand the fundamentals, needs to understand basic safety, know that weapon and its condition at all times, treat every weapon as if it were loaded, as I'm sure you've heard before. Know how to use that type of firearm. You know, we're not sure how much of a market there is for it, but we would love to have just a basic firearms fundamentals class where you walk in, you learn the loading, and the firing procedures, right, for everything from revolvers, semi-automatic pistols, and within semi-automatic pistols, direct. I'm sorry, DASA, right? So double action, single action,
Mm-hmm.
uh, fired. Semi-automatic shotguns, pump action shotguns, break action shotguns, semi-automatic rifles, bolt action rifles. Just something where, if you're a father or an older brother, or you're just a concerned citizen who wants to learn, you can come in and get that. But the reality is, there's a lot of people who are interested in owning, building, and using firearms, who are not interested in paying for the training. And it, a lot of people, they grow up with their father or their uncle. Our uncle Dave, retired Navy senior chief, CBs can do, right? He, he's the one who taught Mason and I the majority of our firearms safety stuff, right? And many people grow up that way,
Sure.
and in a lot of cases, that is a suitable foundation, right? But in a lot of cases, it's something that people take for granted.
How
And
often do you think people with firearms? I forget where I heard this at. It might have been an Andy Stumpf podcast or something. He was talking about, if you have a firearm in your house, a weapon you intend to use, hopefully never, but you might have to one day. He said something about, constantly making yourself proficient with it. I mean, that doesn't mean like you're blindfolding yourself in your house and taking it apart like a crazy person, but you're getting your hands on it almost like you would in the military. You got to go do your quarterly quals. Do you think that there's that should be implemented for people, or people should just be kind of, it's one thing to own a gun, it's one thing to be responsible with it. And part of that responsibility, I would imagine, is being proficient with it, not thinking that you're just gonna, break through the cement one day and pull out your huge box full of shotguns and get ready for the bad guys to come.
yeah,
John Wick reference.
yeah, yeah. It's a culture thing, man. Because when you start when you start dancing around or talking around, inherent rights and this and that, and
Sure.
different state laws, and unfortunately, being from Connecticut, those state laws are drastically different than where I reside in Texas, right? I err on the side of it. This is a right to
Right.
own, but especially after 2 decades of being in a profession of arms, but I was a marksmanship instructor for the majority of my time, right? So I can tell you that there are a lot of people who are not, they're not proficient yet, even after 3 months of training at Paris Island or San Diego, plus their stint at the School of Infantry, whether they were a grunt or whether they were an enabler. There's a lot of people who still aren't comfortable. So what needs to happen is it's about culture, man, and culture starts really in your family. I would argue, right? And if we're raising our kids around a culture of learning, right? Learning about that specific firearm, learning about how it works, learning, seeking knowledge. And honestly, man, like, these days there's so much knowledge for free, right? Like,
Insane.
it's
It's almost too much, and then it's so funny because then it leaves the user kind of like a Rolodex of shit to go through, and they're like, well, which, Shamus says to do this, but Paul says to do this.
right.
Who do I follow? And I think it's sometimes how the message is delivered, and depending on your preconceived notions too, already of what you think a gun can and what you can do with a gun, and whatever movies you fucking watched, it can really manipulate your mind on such. I think everyone should be able to own one and have one. I also think you should, even though it's a right, you should take care of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, man. Just owning a firearm doesn't make you dangerous with it.
Right.
It doesn't. And there's a lot of people, and you see it in the military. I'm a 6-time expert. I don't need to go to the range. I'm like, well, you were a 6-time expert like 5 years ago when you qualified the last time. I'm not saying you forgot how to use the gun, the rifle or the pistol or whatever it was, but
Sure.
what I'm telling you is the skill is perishable. Um, and one of the easiest ways, like, as a gun owner, to get proficient with your, that firearm is just by dry fire, man. Take that firearm, go buy some snap caps, some little fake cartridge, bullets for your gun, and load your magazines up with 3, 4, 5 snap caps, and go through the cycling process. Go through your down gun procedures, like your failure to feed or failure to extract, draw from the holster, whether it's concealment or outside the waist, or from your freaking nightstand, whatever
Right.
what in your boxer shorts, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Not in your fucking
you know,
camo pants.
yeah, a perfect example. I went to the range last Friday night with my buddy Kyle from high school, who lives down here. So graduated from high school with him in Connecticut. He lives down here. He's starting up a coffee company called No Remorse Coffee Company.
Nice.
And
Shout out to No Remorse Coffee
yep,
Company.
yep, great music. Freaking phenomenal cook, by the way.
Oh wow, nice.
Yep.
Where's that going to be at?
So
Sorry
he's
to get sidetracked.
no. I was going to be out of Austin for now, but I believe they're going to be back to New England here pretty soon.
Oh, right on. Nice.
So yeah, great people. So we went to the range, and I was doing just some some drills drawn from the holster, right? And my light on my pistol continued to turn off on itself, right?
Hmm.
And this is a brand new light. It's made by a reputable company. But if I hadn't gone out there and shaken that gear out and really tested it, well over 100 rounds, right? That's a problem if you're identifying a weapon light that's turning off on you with only like 165 rounds through the pipe, right? That's a problem. So that not only do you identify areas where you need to improve, whether it's from your body mechanics or your accuracy, you shake out your gear, right? I mean,
Right.
that particular pistol, made by a very, I had like 25 failures to fully extract in my first 1,000 rounds with that gun. That's a problem, right?
Wow.
And it has seemed to work itself out. But in my opinion, there's a big company who just got a big ass contract, who I think is going to have some reputation issues here in the next few years based off their quality control, right?
Oh
But
wow.
you got to get out there and you got to shake your stuff out and really train with it.
And it's so funny. That's a great, the great tip about not using real bullets, because everybody gets their head wrapped around. Well, I gotta go get ammo, and I don't have any ammo, and I blah this and that. It's like, well, there's a lot of things you can do before trying to shoot a bullseye every goddamn time.
Right.
Even just getting it out of the safe, finding your fucking keys. If you don't, if like I keep mine in the closet in a safe, so. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go somewhere. I have friends and neighbors that keep them by their bedside, or they got like a false something somewhere, and that's where they keep it. But if you don't practice going to do that stuff, even if it's doing, let's say it's not at night. Obviously, you're not gonna wake your whole damn family up at 2 a.m, and go rummaging through getting a gun out. You can, I guess, if you really want to practice. But you could always do about 10, 15 burpees and go. Run from the house, run into the garage, try to get through the lock and fumbling around. It's kind of funny when you do that stuff and you don't really practice to it or train to it. You can really end up seeing how bad you suck. And I don't know if it's people there, they just kind of go, because I get in this mode too with it. It's like, it's all right. I haven't I haven't messed with it for 6 months. It'll be fine. And then I kind of start thinking in my head, I go, something will happen in the neighborhood. Or you read something on the news, you kind of go, man, I should have fucking looked at my weapons, like at least put my hands on them. What the hell am I doing? Because had I been that person, I could have been just a complete shit show out there. And, this guy has the upper hand immediately, even though I have better past training than they might have,
Yeah. And here's your comparison, right? Because you're a fit guy. If you were about to insert a complex lift that you don't do all the time, are confident with, but you haven't done it in 6 months.
Sure.
When you go to do that complex lift, like say it's something overhead, ground to overhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you're taking a little bit of extra time to ponder over like that lift, a little bit extra time to warm up, right? You're probably thinking about everything from your foot placement through your hand placement on the bar. You're
Right.
probably thinking about your hip thrust. You're thinking about, you're probably thinking about like small things like the bumper plate placement.
Nonsense. Yeah.
Because you haven't done that complex lift in that long. And what I will tell you, I've been in some situations downrange where, when complex events happen, you're going to default to your level of training prior. That's all there is to it,
Right.
I can't tell you how many times. Um, I can't tell you how many times I've disassembled, reassembled, and loaded an M240 Bravo machine gun. Right, and it gets to the point where when you need to use it for real, you perform. Right,
Right. No
and
matter what happens.
no matter what happens. Right, and with our personal firearms, when we have those, it's very hard to replicate those time is life situations to,
Mm.
life situations, still a phrase from Travis Haley, right? Um, Doing the burpees is awesome, right? Getting that high heart rate, that's awesome.
Yep.
But on like the handling side, the number one thing I can recommend to people, and some people disagree, get into a little bit of firearms competition.
Hmm.
Because when that buzzer goes off and everyone's watching you and you're on the clock, even though you had your stage plan or whatever, it's you versus the time, right?
Right.
And there's no other person to. And the way I compete, because it's pretty hard to beat some of these damn civilians, man. They are just phenomenal shooters, right? I compete against myself, right? And there's been times where the buzzer's
Keep going.
gone. I've forgot my entire freaking stage plan, right? And you start doing weird stuff like, you know, drawn magazines the wrong way from your pocket or whatever, and it just gets wacky. So I always recommend people, once they get the fundamentals down, the basic safety down, why not enter a competition? Because I guarantee you, a second thing about going to firearms competitions, whether it's USPSA, IDPA, those are like pistol, associations. Whether it's two gun action challenge or even if it's bullseye, old school, M1 Garens or 1903s or modern service rifles,
Mm-hmm.
the people that you're going to be around are going to support you as a new competitor, guaranteed.
Yeah, not just shit on you. Oh, look at this fucking idiot. Good
Yeah,
luck.
it's the polar opposite of when I was like riding BMX when I was younger, and like you'd go to the skate park and all the. Well, it's in Massachusetts, so that's half the problem. But you go to Mass Skate Company and all like the semi pros would just be like have an attitude with the new kids,
Right.
complete complete opposite, So
It's funny because it's funny you say that because I haven't done the fucking CrossFit Opens going on right now, and I haven't done the Open since I broke my back. Even since before then. Probably 7 years ago, something like that. And what you were saying about doing competitions, you can work out all you want inside the gym. You do workouts. I mean, me and your brother send workouts back and forth. And yeah, you're working out and you're doing the work and you're going hard. But the other day, I actually had to do the workout with a judge and everything, and it added another layer. My body hurt more the next day. It just, even though I knew how to do everything was easy. Nothing was like some fucking walk on my hands for a mile. That would be horrible. But it was one of those things. Just it added a layer of, oh damn, like I do need to get better at this stuff. Even though I may think I'm here in my garage gym, by myself, doing it by myself, just like the gun stuff. It made me realize, oh damn, I guess I got to train a little harder because that was not good. Even though I did
yeah,
I did fine, but I didn't do as well as I know that I probably could have done, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I never even thought about that because I always think, okay, let me just go to the range and I'll go with a few friends. Let's go do some shooting, a couple hundred rounds, and all right, let's go get some beers. I feel better. Let's put the guns away, bring them home.
yeah, and and say you're a little apprehensive to get into firearms competition, right? And that's
Right.
fine. You can start the competition with yourself with a shot timer, man. Like
There you go.
they're a little they're a little pricey, but putting a standard to something, right? We say task condition standard in the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Putting a on something and being able to view measurable performance, right, is how we get better, right? Um, the other day we were doing one round slide lock reload, one round, like the classic tactical freaking drill, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's popularity recently due to some pretty big influencers saying it's not relevant, like whatever. I mean, it's a firearms manipulation. So is it as important as the past 10 years will tell you on YouTube? No, but it is still an important thing to do, right? And I'm not super fast. So like the time standard we were going off of was like 4.5 seconds or something like that, right? And, you know, we were measuring our performance going down and down and down, right? And when you can take a look at that shot timer afterwards and actually see like, okay, here's my, this is how fast I got my first shot off. This is the amount of time it took for me to reload the weapon and get my next shot off, right? You're seeing measurable performance, right? And you can record that performance and go forward, right? Now let me add a different layer into it. Let me do the 15 burpees you talked about.
Sure.
Right. How can I do that? Okay, so that's how quickly I do it from an outside the waistband holster on a war belt. How fast can I do it with this flannel shirt on with an inside the waistband holster, right? Because I got to clear my garment, etc. Right.
Right.
Take a pistol you're not as familiar with, right? Take something, you're a Glock guy, go and do it with something that has a drastically different magazine release, like a HK, like an HK VP9, right? Something. There's a million ways to measure performance by just adding in small changes, right?
And the numbers don't lie, you know.
Don't lie.
You know, the accuracy, yeah, it's always, people always go to accuracy with guns, but it's often forgotten about all those other things that you could also be working on. And I mean, to bring up working out again, the numbers don't fucking lie. So, when you're going head to head against somebody and it's 100 burpees per time and it took you 20 minutes and took him 10, you lost.
And accuracy is super important, but you might want to consider some acceptable accuracy with a combination of speed, because if you're not getting in a defensive situation, if you're not getting it out fast enough, you may not be winning the day, right?
Oh, so, yeah, no.
And one thing the Marine Corps does to us is we want to shoot as accurate as possible, right?
Sure.
Fundamentals of marksmanship, trigger control, sight alignment, that slow, steady breath hold, discharge the weapon at the bottom of your breath cycle, all these things that, muscular relaxation, bone support, etc. Right? A lot of that turns into some pretty slow shooting. Okay.
Of course.
And I want to sit there at 7 yards, talking about, 3 to 7 yards, like a defensive pistol situation in most cases by statistics, right? You're talking 3 yards, 3 rounds when we average out the majority of documented defensive pistol situations, right? Well, if I'm trying to shoot like this, and that's always the goal, right? That's always the goal. But it's taken me draw, slow, steady, like that. That's not cutting it. However, I do not advocate for something called point shooting, right? Which some people absolutely advocate for. Iron sights don't matter. You're just point shooting.
Can you explain? Can you kind of elaborate on that for the peeps that are like point shoot? Yeah, just point and shoot it, right?
Point. There's a relationship between seeing your sights, right, and seeing your target. Okay, the old way, the traditional way of teaching iron sights: front sight post, right, rear sight, right, focus hard on the front sight post, blurry target, right. Well, you're gonna be looking at your target more than likely in a defensive scenario. But
of course,
many of the higher level trainers right now are talking about seeing your sights, right? So if you're focused on a target, you can still see your sights, I guess, in your like reverse peripheral vision, right? Peripheral's out here, but in your unfocused vision, you're focused on your target, you're seeing your sights.
Right.
If your natural point of aim is true and your sights are true, you're going to hit the target, right? Now, many people advocate that don't even look at your sights, look at the target and just pull the trigger because it doesn't matter. Okay. Incorrect. I call bullshit on that, because you can miss at 3 yards. I'm telling you right now. Most people who've shot any type of time-based, standard-based pistol competition, or been honest with themselves in time-based personal training, know they can miss at 3 yards on a reduced size silhouette, torso silhouette, if you're going to, right? Some trainers that are, I'm telling you, professional, experienced, accurate trainers. Some of them have taken their sights off and done that point shooting at like 25 yards just to prove you can get in the acceptable accuracy realm.
Right.
I don't refute any of that, but like sights are an enabler to the tool itself, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not it's iron sights or whether it's a pistol mounted red dot, it's there as a enabler to that tool, right?
I mean, it's funny because those guys that are everyone has their own tricks and ways they like to do stuff, but once you get to a certain level and you're like approaching the mastery levels, it's easy to be able to be like, well, yeah, that doesn't really matter anymore. You could really just do it this way. I go, yeah, for you. But if I was just fucking starting and you're telling me to do this, bro, give me the basics. And I want the dumbest basics because and anybody that gets insulted by some guy talking to them about the basics, they're not talking down to that person. They're just like, hey, man, I don't know you from shit. And I'm going to show you what I think is right at the basic level. I'm not trying to teach you how to dunk from the free throw line, man. I want to see if you can dribble and shoot with your dominant hand. And then after we get past that, we can add some layers in there, and then you can figure out what stuff works for you, right?
Well, and if you can articulate to somebody that the basics, like trigger control and sight alignment or dot placement, those are most people would call basic fundamentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those don't change.
Right.
If your sights are true or your sights are aligned to your dot is true and your trigger control does not interrupt the sight alignment or dot placement, those two basic things go all the way through the entire process. It doesn't matter whether you're a Cub Scout shooting a BB gun at camp, right? Or whether you're actually in a situation where you're using your firearm in competition or some type of measured performance, or hopefully you never have to, but using it in a defensive scenario, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't change. What changes is like tempo, right? Time-based standards, the load you might have on your body, the fact that your freaking target opponent, unfortunately, may be moving, right?
Exactly.
They may,
they're not just like, hey, shoot me.
You talk about training, we're training to combat a peer-on-peer force in the PLA, the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China, right? They wear body armor with like level 3 plates, okay? So what changes? Well, now our point of aim changes. Now we need to start looking at pelvic shots so we can immobilize someone, right?
Wow.
Things like that, It just, there's more information that kind of gets meshed or stacked on, but the basics remain the same. And I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been reading military history for a long time. And, now with like the American Veterans Center with all their interviews and just social media in general, you get a lot of veteran perspective, a lot of combat veteran perspective, and a lot of cops, right?
Right, big time.
And a lot of them will tell you that it was just the damn basics that made him persevere in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whiz bang thing. It's not, it's just, it's flawless or near flawless execution of the basics is how you get proficient with firearms training. Right. And that's what we aim to learn more about and showcase and eventually start training people, but I mean, I'm telling you, man, this space is the gun culture, right? Like, it is so inundated with personalities and, there's so many opinions out there and there's so many really intelligent people. But there's a lot of noise too. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, these days it's the same almost with everything, anything that there's a monetary background to it or some support, there's a million and one ways that a novice can get lost in the information, diet, working out. We'll get to the VA stuff. I've been down the rabbit hole and I'm out now and you're about to go down it. Mm-hmm. But with firearms, it's another one, politics aside, everybody, I'm talking about just you wanting to get a gun tomorrow, wherever state you live in. You could watch one YouTube video and then be stuck for 40 hours later just, oh man, I got to get this vest and I got to get these sights and I better get these bullets. Like, Jesus fuck, man.
And
chill. You don't even have a gun yet.
and one thing we try to do, like I try not to talk any shit, man. Like even the shit posters, like, and they're pretty rare, but if I get some negative stuff, I'll hit them with the unimpressed emoji with the flat face.
Yeah. Yes. One of my favorites.
Yeah, that's actually on one of my plaques from one of my. But there's always going to be shit talk. Remember when Mason pulled 700 or 7 something and CrossFit put it on their Instagram like 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And in the whole comments section, like, oh, his back was rounded, bad form. And I don't know if it was Josh that jumped in or somebody jumped in. They're like, bro, it's a 700-pound pull. What's your PR? You know what I'm saying?
People, and it's amazing. You know, I love people being able to talk. I think it's, you know, awesome, great. It's just wild to me that I think about what I say, like, especially since I'm on social media and my sports card business is on Twitter. There's some things I want to say, and I'll type them and I'll look at it and I'm like, man, if I got to think about it this fucking long, fuck it, I'm deleting it. I don't even need to comment. I mean, the podcast is nice because I can talk shit, and if somebody listens, I'll be like, yeah, I mean, that's how I fucking feel. So I don't know what to tell you. But man, the people that come in the comments, I haven't gotten anybody yet because nobody gives a shit about me right now other than the people that care. But you know what I mean? Once you get to a certain point or enough people see it, they kind of like, oh, there's always going to be somebody. And I guess that's good for the brand, you know, for whatever thing you're promoting.
And again, like, you know, we're approaching this as like a learning campaign, right? You know, Steele, the commandant's, you know, he says we're in a campaign of learning right now in the United States Marine Corps, and I like that, right? Because it's a humble statement, right? So, you know, Victor and I with this thing, it's a learning campaign, a learning experience, right? To continue training and to stay relevant as firearms owners and, you know, people who are, you know, definitely qualified and, you know, aspire to train, right? To train people. You know, the training people has been the best part of my career. And it's been something that I've done for a long time. And, you know, to tie up, you know, kind of tie up the firearm stuff, unless you've got questions about it. Like, one thing I'll never back down on, and this isn't a political statement, this is an American history statement, right? Every single American in this country deserves the right to own a centerfire rifle capable of a detachable magazine with standard capacity magazines, right? And standard capacity is NATO standard capacity, right? Like, United States government standard capacity stuff. If the local government can own that crap, then the American citizen should be able to own that crap. That's all there is to it. And I'll have a lot of conversations about divisive issues. I'll have a conversation with you about the border, abortion, freaking damn, you know, LGBTQ, whatever, freaking right. I'll talk to people about whatever, but I will never back down from that statement. Like, that is a standard American thing. And without that theme, the theme of American young men and women owning military grade personal firearms, we would not have the United States of America as we know it right now. There's no way to argue it. There's no way. I mean,
I agree with you 100%.
No,
fear is a you know, it's a powerful tool for, you know, whoever the fuck I'm quoting that said that before. But it really is. And I never touched a gun until I got in the Navy. Never. In my whole life. I grew up in the inner city Chicago, Miami, and never had a gun. And never even was around a gun. Never even saw one in person, never put one in my fucking hand, for Christ's sakes, other than some low points in my life. But I never got on a range and shot a gun until I was in the military. I was never afraid of a gun. I just never thought, hey, what the hell do I need one for? You know, I don't need one. Right. But when I started using them in the military, I realized, wow, you know, it doesn't make you cool that you have a fucking gun. You know, there's nothing, you're not cool. You know, they look cool. I think some of them are badass looking, you know, but it doesn't up your status as a man or a woman if you got a gun. But I think after getting that training and being behind different kinds of guns and using all sorts of cool stuff and having fun, safe fun, everyone. Now that when I got out, I was like, well, babe, you know, I don't want to be the only house on the block without being Mr. No gun. And it's not that I was against guns, nor my wife either. But when we got, and it was right around, we moved out here to Houston, and the pandemic was really fucking ramping up. And it was right before Trump came out to drop the lockdown speech, the 2-weeker deal. And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting locked down for 2 weeks. And if things do go sideways for whatever reason, I don't want to be the guy, in The Last of Us trying to find a fucking gun somewhere to keep my family safe,
Good argument.
And I get it. I get the other side too when people are like, well, we need control and this and that. I go, I think there's only so much control you can do. I think training is a better word that should be thrown around. Yeah. Like what we were saying, if you are going to get a gun, give a shit about it more than your car. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't do that. I know that I don't, and I own a fucking gun. And I think a lot of people that do own guns, they take it for granted once they do get them, And I got it. There's collectors out there that got fucking 4 million guns. And yeah, I guess that's a different conversation. At one point, where are you a collector, or are you getting ready for, World War 12? If you got tanks and shit, I'm like, dude, hey, we don't need a fighter jet, brother.
The American rifleman concept, man, or theme, spirit of the American rifleman. Like, look, a modern rifle, a modern AR-15, it's the same spirit, Second Amendment, same spirit as it was back in 1775, right? But it comes with so much responsibility, and the culture needs to understand that responsibility, right?
100%.
Things you're talking about are absolutely perfect. That we sent Marines down that were from New Orleans during Katrina in 2005. They came back with a lot of bad stories about things that happened down there, man. Like you just never know, and whether you're religious or not. I think most people believe they have the inherent right to self-defense, whether they believe that comes from God or whether it comes from a natural way of things, right?
Right.
But, yeah, man, it's just it's a culture that requires responsibility and requires an understanding of history, an understanding of the state of America, and just the understanding of safety and the observation of like standards-based performance, right? If you really want to call yourself like a gun owner for defense, if you don't observe all the things I just it's specifically the standards-based stuff and performance, like you just own guns, man. You're not capable.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Yeah, you're just a gun collector. Yeah. I collect cards. Some people collect guns. What do you think, before we get off the guns, because I'm just curious, and I haven't checked the news. This is like a two-parter. Before we hopped on, I saw on the news there's something going on in Boulder, Colorado right now. Some active shooter at like 5 different school districts or some shit, which is, and that's the side where people are like, there needs to be none, and I'm like, no, there needs to be better training for everybody, and preparations need to be made. It's so shitty how often they happen, and I don't think that's because people are gun owners, and I know that's the quick way that people like to throw it out there. The media likes to put out there that, there's too many guns out there. I go, in my head, I kind of think, so if you stop everyone right now from buying a weapon, let's say tomorrow they press a button, you can't even go. They wipe your brain. All the other people, though, that already have them, they got them. And if they don't want you to know they have them, they can easily do that too. So I think, not to double tap it, but the fucking training is huge. And I'm happy you guys are, starting that up. Something other than, the typical John Wick, shout out to John Wick again, the training videos that I know everybody, makes viral, and they're awesome to see. What do you think about those schools? I mean, they obviously facilitate a need, right? Because for the movies and shit. Do you think that's like real shooting, or is it like some fucking movie star ping, ping, ping shit?
I think there's a lot of theater that goes into a lot of the content out there, and some of it's kind of being ramped down recently because I think a lot of the content creators realized that that's all it really was just theater, right?
I didn't even think about that because I've seen it a lot less. There was a moment where I was seeing, everybody and their mother were going to these, shooting ranges where I mean, shit, some of the shooting looks crazy. You're like, God damn, like you're like a X-Man out there,
I mean, to go no farther than, but there's so much helmet cam footage from the ICE conflict now and like the later years of Afghanistan. Like if you
Right.
really want to see what like drawn out firefights look like, they look 90, drawn out combat operations. They look 90% boring with 10% gunfight, right? And, maneuver, suppress, maneuver, communicate, call in assets, destroy the enemy, and then conduct actions on objective, right? And if
Right.
you're a rifleman, if you're a rifleman in the Marine Corps or the Army, you're getting that close combat, right? But the theater of just like the overproduced, steel footage with freaking ping ping here and like speedy ass stuff. Look,
Yeah.
it's all really good. It's all
Right.
really it's good stuff because in a lot of cases these are guys that are safely, responsibly showcasing, right? But I think that the a good amount of community is starting to realize like it's about a lot more than just doing like multiple transitions on steel targets and reloading in 1.5 seconds and this and that. Like there's a lot of culture that goes to it. There's you know just it's a mindset, right? And there's a lot of community that goes with it too. Um, a lot of people don't even know their neighbors anymore.
Right.
I'm cordial with one, and then the other one like gave my wife attitude, and God forbid you do that because you're blacklisted. And are we going to have some YouTube content with shooting and this? Yes, there. But I'm never going to sit there and do 90 retakes to
I was
get
gonna, yeah.
0.5 second speed reload, which I don't even know if that's fast or not. I have no idea. What I can
Right.
tell you though is I've done it in combat. I've done it for real. So I know how that affects me. But I'm not the guy who's going to go up in a bunch of in front of a bunch of students and tell war stories. I'm not going to do it. There is a community that works for, and
Yeah.
that's called 18-year-old privates at Marine Combat Training Battalion, infantry Marine course, right? Like all your war stories are great. When you can line it up with that badass edit from '04 with Seether in the background and they're destroying Fallujah and stuff like that's the civilian population is not the population that's looking for that type of feedback. They're
Right.
just I have this thing. I spent a lot of money on this thing, and that might be a piece of gear. That might be a plate carrier. That might be night vision, right? That might
Mm-hmm.
be they want to use that, and you're providing them the avenue and the expertise on that. And sometimes you're going to get a bunch of opinions back, and it's fine. You might learn something, right?
Of course.
Or it might be a bunch of you ever want to be a paid conversationalist, just go work at the front desk of a gun store, right?
Yeah.
Probably more there than at a damn bar, I would say. But
Oh man, I do the same at a card show. When I'm at a card show, it's constant talking.
But what's the answer to the? Is there an answer to the school stuff, man? Like I'm 100% humble enough to admit that I don't have the answer, and it's hard for me to even get into a conversation about it because it's really hard for me to say that there should be mandatory training to purchase a firearm.
Right.
It's really hard for me to say that, unless
It's one of those hard fucking conversations that I love it when people have the fucking answer. They're like, yep, this is what we got to do. This is going to fix it. It's like, bro, do you have a fucking crystal ball that you didn't tell me about? Because if you do, I'm going to need to see the lotto numbers for next month.
Here's what I'll tell you. Like the independent school district that my kids go to school at, there are armed teachers. I have no problem.
Wow.
Right? The Texas school guardian thing is, the more I learn about it, it sounds like it's a pretty well thought out program. And I know some people that facilitate some of the training.
Nice.
And
you're up in Dallas, right? Or Fort Worth?
We live east of Dallas in Royse City.
Okay.
We have I worked on it for the next 2.5 days until I'm done. Uh, so
And you're out in 2 days?
now I'm going on Skill Bridge, which would
Okay,
be
skill. Okay, gotcha.
so
And your partner is still enlisted or he's out?
he's a retired chief warrant officer too. Yeah,
Okay.
but he's out.
Um, and since we're talking about getting out, to make the transition off of guns before I scare everybody, everyone's so scared of guns. Relax. Take Shamus's class, and you'll fucking feel right at home. Um, you're almost at 20 years,
Yep.
about to get out.
Yeah,
You're in the process. Have you
yeah,
started the process?
yeah. It's crazy, man. Like sometimes you feel like you're still a Lance Corporal, right? 19 years old, but yeah, I'm almost done. So I've been through the initial gathering up all my medical documentation, getting my final physical done. I turned all that stuff into a veteran service organization. In my case, Texas Veterans Commission. They will advocate for me when it comes to the VA.
Nice.
What I'm waiting on now is once that gets turned in, the VA is going to order a bunch of appointments for me to
Yep.
verify all of my claims, right? And after 20 years, man, I got 31 claims, and I got 31 claims. And I never ate an IED directly, I
Right.
never ate an RPG grenade directly. I mean, I had like very close calls, and I had outgoing, a bunch of outgoing stuff really close, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, in proximity of a bunch of IDF and stuff like that. But I never ate anything directly. Never received any gunshot wounds or anything. But you know, years and years of carrying that gear, lower back issues, man, neck issues. Uh, you know, I have high arches anyway, so my feet, broke both my hands on my BMX bike, but whatever, it's freaking service connected, right?
Yep.
Um, and mental health stuff, going to the counselor, etc. Like if you're not doing that, like you need to get off your freaking high horse and just go do it. Um, it's
It's
just
a real stressful time for every. I mean, some veterans don't really give a shit. They're like, whatever, I'm getting out. Nothing's wrong with me. And then 15 years goes by or 20 years goes by. I met a guy at my daughter's school. It was like a family. I think it was for Veterans Day. They were doing like a Veterans Day thing, and all the veteran parents come in. This and that. Some people are starting to tell war stories and stuff, and I'm like, okay. Nice. Sounds good. Can we talk about like life or something else? Everyone wants to know what you did or where you're from and this and that, which is okay. Got it. And one guy started talking. He goes, "Yeah, man, I still haven't done my clam. I've been out for 15 years." And I'm like, "What?"
yeah, do it.
He was in shape. Very fit guy. Looked normal. Nothing looked like nothing was wrong with him. I'm like, but man, that's there for a reason. And it's not like a use it or lose it. You don't use it, they just don't give a shit. They're not going to come knocking on your door in 20 years. Hey, your back's fucked up. Why is it fucked up? I don't know. You've been out for 20 years. Okay, well, good luck getting that claim filled out.
We'll use an example of a body, an issue that you and I probably both have, right? So, degenerative disc issues, right?
Yep.
Were you a crew chief or a maintainer?
I was in the back. Yep.
Right. So you're bent over in a helicopter for
Yeah.
hours on end, right? And on top of the vibration.
I never held the crew chief moniker.
Yeah, but you're in the air, and
Yep.
I don't like being on the birds, but I could see the maintainers and the crew chiefs in the back, and the way that they had to have their bodies for hours on end, right? I've got lower back issues from carrying all the weight, probably from bending over, working on trucks, doing the conditioning hikes, etc. Right?
Yep.
Just because like you can work through, and you still might have a respectable deadlift, and you still may be able to do front squats and etc.
100%.
But what you're not, what the veteran who is kind of like dismissing the opportunity to document this stuff is not considering is that injury may take you out of the workforce 10 years before you wanted to, when
Yep.
you're 55 years old, right? And you never know what's going to happen in life. I mean,
No.
maybe life is great, but maybe you're trying to help pay for your grandkids' college, or maybe insert reason. You don't want to be put in a position where you're not being taken care of by the organization that is designed to take care of you. Like, so make your claim, go to medical, And at the very least, even if it's been 15 years, you can always file a claim. And if the claim is deemed to be service connected, you'll start getting paid from that portion, right? From the
Exactly.
date that you filed that claim. Now, the system, for anybody who's going through the process right now, I have been advised the system is a little bit backed up because of the PACT order that just came out, which included the burn pit registry stuff, right?
Oh, yep.
So it's pretty backed up. But if you're transitioning off of active duty or off your reserve contract and you're looking at doing your claim, right? Just know that if you get the claim put in on time, you'll get the back pay, no matter how long it takes for your first payment to happen after you get out.
Exactly.
I mean, just do it. Like, and
How many months before you're out, or years for that matter?
so on the active duty side, you can file for benefits delivery at discharge between 180 and 90 days before you get out or retire. So what that means is you need to have all of your medical documentation consolidated, right? Try to get it all uploaded into Genesis, into the system. Your coordinator medical help you. If you don't update it because you're on like TRICARE remote like me and you go out in town, because there's no base around me, have the hard copies. Get with a veteran service organization like Disabled American Veterans, again, Texas Veterans Commission. There's some other ones out there. Work through that veteran service officer and get that claim submitted between 180 and 90 days. That will mean that you will get your disability rating when you get out, when you EAS, ETS, retire. You may not get paid that 30 days later because the system's backed up, but you'll know your rating, right?
Yep. And that's huge.
You don't do it like that, and you're trying to mess with the VA afterwards. It can take a really long time, right? So
I could only imagine.
And here's the big thing: you got to go to the transition seminar like a year out, right? Go to
TAPS.
Yeah, they're not great. They're not great, but at least you're going to get that medical stuff, and you can kick that off, right?
Yeah.
And if something's bumped or bruised, go to medical. Like, I know dudes who were literally have like shrapnel wounds from like Phantom Fury, gunshot wounds, who never had their Purple Hearts ran because like a couple kids in their squad lost legs or whatever. And I'm like, I know what you were thinking at the time, but man, it just be humble about it. The veterans or affairs office, they exist for a reason. Yes, it's a huge part of our budget. Yes, it's a bureaucracy, and some clinics have good reputations and some don't. Understandable, but get your stuff documented because you don't know what path your life is going to go on. You really don't.
No, I mean it's so crazy because it's really fucking hard when you're in and shit's messed up and you're not a shitbag, so you still want to work, and the last thing you want to do, like especially in my old job flying, it's you say one thing and that could put you down. And for some people, they don't. I mean, do I want to fly 5 days a week for 5 hours at a time? Not really. My body really fucking doesn't like that. But if that's what I'm asked to do, then I got to do it. I'm not going to be like, I got to go to medical. My toe hurts. And you definitely don't want to go down. At least that's kind of what was always preached to me. It's like you don't want to be fucking down. Because if you're down, you can't go on deployment. You can't do all these other things. You are making it harder on the 40 other dudes that have to fly as well, because someone's got to pick up your slack, right? And when I was going through my stuff, mine was a lot different because it was premature. I was in the helicopter crash, didn't know my back was broken. Yeah, broke my back, and then went on deployment and still didn't know. Came back, realized my back was broken, had the fusion. And, my doctor fucking told me, hey, so what job do you want to do? Or are you getting out? And I'm like, well, I'm doing rescue swimmer, bro. And he goes, no, you're not. You can't. You're fucked up. Like you have a back fusion now. You can't be in a helicopter. You're 6'5", and a helicopter's good for people that are 5'2". Yeah, so what do you want to do? I go, well, you got to at least give me the shot to go give it a try, right? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll let you go. You know, he was a helicopter pilot too, which was funny, or prior, before he became a neuro doctor. And he goes, but I'll see you back in 6 months. And when you do, you know, I'll let you, you know, I'll do whatever you need me to do to start your paperwork to get out and whatnot. And I go, you won't see me back. I won't be back. Well, it wasn't 6 months. It was like a year later, and I was back. And I'm like, I went on deployment again. And man, I got back and I was fucked up for sure. And I kept going to the emergency room, all this stuff. And I mean, even your brother looked at me one time with a friend of ours, Senior Chief Wolf, and he was like, Paul, you've been to the emergency room like fucking 5 times in 5 months for your back, or, you know, what are we doing here? At one point, you know, and my daughter was like 2 at the time. You know, so I had a lot of thoughts going through my head, you know, and you're like, do you want to run with your kid, or do you want to, I understand, you know, no one's, and it took some people to kind of be like, no one's questioning your fucking want to do the job, you know, but can you get your head out of your ass kind of and be like, you know, you are doing the job, you are helping, you're being a great serviceman to your country, but you have a family, and you know, no one's going to think less of you because you're getting out because you had a back fusion, you know? And it took me it still took me, I think, another emergency room trip for kind of me to just go walking into my chief's mess, you know, office and being like, hey, I'm going to hang it up. And, you know, they were like, well, I think one of them said, about fucking time, you know, like it's, you know, cause and they know it's a hard go. And I can say that for anyone with, not, you know, there's people with more serious stuff than me that are throwing it under the rugs to make sure that they can still operate. It's a fine fucking line, man. At one point you kind of,
what
were you going to say?
Aircraft were you in when you crashed?
Hotel.
60?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. How about that, man?
Yeah, man. In San Diego, you know, at least it wasn't in like fucking Iraq or something.
Or in the dam.
Yeah, the ocean would terrify the fuck out of me. It's funny because some people ask me, where would you rather crash? Where would you have rather crashed? I go, well, I guess over the fucking ground because I lived there. So, but it's and you know, my process was fucked from the start. I mean, I had like everything went good with my doctors, and the doctor at my squadron worked for the VA as a civilian, so he was a reservist. So he was a great resource to lean on, but a lot of people don't have that. And thank God, you know, my wife's fucking, you know, I hate fucking Facebook, but she knows how to use it to our advantage, and doesn't go down the echo chambers of bullshit. Right. If it's information you're looking for, you can find some decent groups in Facebook, on Facebook, and I forget what the one was called, but it had all this stuff about disability ratings and how they do the ratings and what you need to do when you're going through this process. And I was getting medically retired. Right. So I had to go through that, but simultaneously they were doing my VA rating. So I did all those appointments, and it's so funny at those appointments. And I always try to tell people this: when you go into those appointments, it's not how you're fucking feeling that day. Mm-hmm. You need to remember the worst time, because that might come back again. It doesn't mean you're fucking lying, you know, but it does mean you go there and, you know, hey, I used to fall out of my truck because I couldn't feel my left leg. So I can feel it right now, but I'm telling you, man, I can't feel my left leg sometimes. So I need you to make sure that's in there. And you have the right to read what the hell they write. I would say another tip, when you do go into your VA appointments, they used to get tricky, because there are some bad actors out there and assholes for some reason in the system. And I've read many a story. It never happened to me, but they do ask you when you get in, how you doing today? And a lot of people will say good. And that's just your normal response, right? Most people are feeling good. Everything's fine today. They will annotate that sometimes as a service member said they feel good. And that will generate them to, you know, the doctor to say, you know, or that'll pimp the doctor to be like, oh, he feels good. All right. So he must be not hurting. Everything's fine today. And I had to do a lot of psych interviews and stuff for like the PTSD portion. I mean, fuck, dude, I can't fly to save my life anymore. It's getting better. I've been using some good tools to manage that fear. But that's a big one. Another one is keep a copy of every single thing before it gets sent off. Do not send one copy. I'll never forget. I made a copy of everything. I had 3 copies of everything. I had one for my wife, like a hard copy for her to have. I had one here in my office. And then I had one that I dropped off at my VA liaison. And she wasn't there that day. So I gave it to her assistant. I was already fucking freaked out that I was doing that, So I give it to the assistant. And he goes, I got it. Here's he puts the name on there. He seemed a squared away guy. So I'm like, all right, cool. I wait a week and I have her number. So I'm calling, hey, did you receive it? No. And finally she was out of town and then she got back. Nope, I don't have it. And I go, bullshit, you don't. So, I remember telling one of my buddies, I'm like, I got to leave. I got to go to the VA right now. So I go there and she's got one of those desks with shit all over it, and that stresses me. Like, I'm talking papers everywhere. And when you're in charge of people's paperwork, you having a desk full of papers and Post-it notes gives me zero faith in your ability to do this correctly. So she literally is rummaging through these papers now to find my file, right? And my file's like a fucking Bible, man. It's a grip. And she's like, I don't know where it is. Papers fucking flaring all over the place. She's opening drawers. And I'm like, okay, lady, you're and I brought another copy with me. So now this is copy number 4, just in case she didn't have it, right? She finally reaches down to her lower left side here, pulls out one of those fat-ass file cabinet drawers. She's lifting files. They're not in like the nice, itemized file by last name. They're like in a stack inside the drawer, like you would throw shit you don't really fucking pay attention to anymore. Mine was midway through, and I happened to see the color of my folder. I go, that's it right there. And I kind of look at her and go, why is it in this drawer? This was supposed to be sent a week ago. Oh, yeah, this is where I put the ones that are going out. Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I would have fucking said, too, if somebody would have caught me red-handed here looking like a dumbass. So she sends it off, and, here we are today, right? Everything ended up working out. I had to go to a medical review board in D.C. because the fucking doctor hates people with back injuries, so she gave me a lower rating. And if for the people out there that are going through medical retirement, you get a rating from the Navy for your specific service-connected injury, like my back and my PTSD, and then everything else, your hearing, your feet, your knee, you broke your wrists, your hands, that's VA. They also look at my back, but the reason I'm getting medically retired was for my back. So they look at that, right? And they send that off to a review board, and it's called an informal review board. And I didn't know this, but until I got the lawyer the civilian lawyer I got that worked for the Navy, he was like, oh yeah, we have this lady always fucks with people that have back injuries. I go, that's insane that you know that. Wow. And he goes, after this case, she won't be doing them anymore. And sure enough, I went to the formal board. I'll never forget being how fucking stressed out I was. Because really it's, when you're medically retired, it's 20% below. You don't, it's not a monetary thing. You don't get any money, but it equates to insurance for you and your family, depending on the percentage you get. So I got 10% for my back and my PTSD total, and I needed 30%. I think I can never remember the exact numbers. I think it was 30. So this lawyer that happened to be at the fucking VA the day that I was there, getting ready to, I'll never forget, I looked at my wife, I'm like, babe, let's just be done with it. We'll figure it out. I don't feel like going to do the board. And the lady a different lady that worked for the VA, she was super cool, and she goes, maybe you want to go talk to this lawyer. And I've told the story before, and I go, okay. So I talk to this lawyer, I go into his office, he looks through my file, and he's looking, he sees the lady's name, and he's like, this fucking bitch, basically, he's shaking his head. And he goes, yep, made a mistake here. He's like, yeah, you're 40% easily. He's like, you should not sign this whatsoever. He
Wow.
goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, are who's going to be my lawyer? When will I meet them? He's like, well, I'm your fucking lawyer now. Like, I'm doing this. And I go, holy shit. Cause if you do these boards, you don't meet your lawyer till you get flown out to DC. They like
Wow.
look at you don't even talk to them. You send them an email. They get your file. They kind of look it over and boom. This guy was like, go get this, and this, just cause I want it for backup. Probably won't need it, but just go get this. And I'll see you in DC in a month. Flew out to DC with my wife. We were the last case of the day. I was seeing people, miserable leaving, super elated leaving, all different sorts of emotions going on in there. I'm in my dress fucking blues. Now, they're like, okay, Mr. Baldwin, your lawyer, come on in. He's like, all right, you wait here. I'll be out in a few minutes. And don't worry, calm down. Yeah, I was fucking beside myself, drenched in sweat, just super nervous, because all this work, is leading up to this moment, for them to either say, yep, she was right, or yep, she's a bitch, basically. And he literally, it was like one of those kitchen doors that kind of swing open, and he goes in, and I turn my back, and he's in there for maybe 30 seconds. Comes back out. All right, Paul, we're done. You got 40%, and we're just gonna go inside real quick. And he said it so like, yeah, like I told you, man, just calm down. Don't worry about it. And I went inside, and it was all these high-ranking dudes, and they go, "We're so sorry to waste your time. I hope you enjoy your free trip to Washington." Because this lady notoriously has had an issue for some reason with people with back injuries, and you crashed into a mountain and you broke your back. So we are totally fine with clearing you for medical retirement and blah, blah, blah. Raise your right hand. They turn over to my wife. They're like, we're so sorry that you had to go through this. I'm sure it was stressful. And my wife's like, doesn't know what to say really. And that's funny because she always knows what to say. She just was like, okay, yeah, thanks. And they're like, have you been to any breweries, any good restaurants? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now, man? Like, and because it's like one of those scenes out of A Few Good Men, pretty much, like
Right.
a smaller courtroom, but you can imagine, it's some big fucking dog staring at you, and you're just like, all right.
Isn't it interesting how like whether it's a contractor or like a civil service, whether it's like whether they're wage grade or whether they're GS, like
Mm-hmm.
a civilian working for the DoD can like really and it's somehow they get like this continuity in their job where they just stick around. And one thing I never want to do, I can't see myself ever for the military again
Oh, right.
as a retired guy. And I think I would probably enjoy it maybe, but like I don't want to be that guy who's like, back in my day, what I'm saying? I remember one time we had an issue. We had an issue with a Marine, and this retired master sergeant like pulled me aside, and he's like trying to counsel me on how to handle it. And I'm a young E6, I'm a young staff sergeant, and what he was telling me was probably completely right, but
Mm-hmm.
it just wasn't his place anymore. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
it's like, and the difference is like the way he would have handled it as a staff sergeant in like 1992 was probably a lot more violent than like I would ever be. Just you can't really compare. But one of my like biggest, I guess, pet peeves or like issues with the DoD in the military experience is you'll get those contractors of all different jobs. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Supply, freaking medical, like I mean, even I've had issues with instructors, some like marksmanship instructors, like out in Kuwait and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, if you don't enjoy the military experience of being around young military members, like don't be employed by the DoD.
No fucking way. No way. Why are you even doing that? Just to get the paycheck, I guess,
Don't get it. I don't get it. But
Yeah, it's quite an experience. I mean, that you're gonna embark on. I hope there's no bumps in the road for you or your family.
I'll tell you about SkillBridge, another program. Like,
Yeah.
So Department of Defense Skill Bridge program, right? So it is a program that any service member can use within the last 180 days of their time in the military, where they can go work for a civilian organization who is an on record DoD Skill Bridge industry partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ranges from like Amazon all the way down to insert small mom and pops that have done their diligence to like get into DoD Skill Bridge, right?
Right.
So the company is under no obligation to pay the service member, no obligation to hire the service member. However, on the packet, in the approval only goes to 05, so lieutenant colonel, commander level, right? It doesn't really even go high, right? Battalion, squad level. On the packet, they do have to put a salary range and likelihood of hire
Oh,
upon
nice.
completion, right? And I'm sure. And then when the service member is done with SkillBridge, they need to give feedback to the local SkillBridge office, letting them know whether or not they got hired or got an offer, etc. So, me, I just was driving by this local concrete company almost every day, and like their shit was together, man. Like their lot was covered in the line. There's no like pile of crap everywhere. Their trucks are really clean, which is hard in the concrete industry, right?
Oh, I bet.
Um, their stuff was just like really organized. Like everything had its place, kind of like my dad's business. So I just emailed them, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to learn about the industry. I retire in a couple of years. Can I come on by?" Dude, I get a call from a former 0311 rifleman who works at that company, who's he's got his MBA now, who was in my battalion back in
Oh,
05.
that's wild.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm the VP of finance. The owner would like to meet you. Can you come by?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah." I throw a
Yeah.
collared shirt, freaking North Face pants, and some work boots, dude. Roll over there, dude, and start talking to him about like logistics management, maintenance management. Being an instructor. Instruct like 440 people at a time. Which sounds cool, but in reality, they're private, so they do what they're told. Um, and they offered
It
me,
does sound cool.
yeah, told them about SkillBridge, and they were like, "We are very interested." I sent them the packet. They wrote up a freaking training objectives plan and a schedule, sent it off, and I got it approved. So here,
Wow.
here on the 6th, I'm going to start with them. And
And so basically, you're an employee for the company, and you won't report to work anymore.
no, you'll be on permissive temporary assigned duty, or whatever your service calls it, right?
Right.
You don't have to go back and you don't have to call them every morning. You don't have to freaking run your damn PFT that season. You are literally going to where that place. If you're stationed in freaking San Diego, but that company is in freaking Kansas, you are going to Kansas, and you are there.
Wow. And it's all that part's paid for. If you like, let's say it is remote, like you got to not remote, like you work from your computer, but hey, you going to Kansas, boy.
Hey, you're still getting your paycheck. You're still getting
That's
your
awesome.
That company will not pay you until you go on terminal leave. So
Okay.
they decide to hire you, they cannot pay you until you're on terminal leave. And then
It's funny. I passed on the skill bridge thing. I remember hearing about it. I think I just had so much shit going on life wise with the getting out the way I did. I didn't use that resource, and part of me sometimes thinks, oh shit, maybe should have gave it a whirl. I'm sure more people, hopefully anyone that's listening, and if you are getting out or thinking about getting out, it sounds like SkillBridge might be a 100% thing to at least entertain.
yeah, it's for anybody, and I'm telling you, like, for guys our age who, they've got a decade or two, maybe they've got a degree, maybe they have an advanced degree. I know multiple E8s and E9s with MBAs, right? Don't sleep on Amazon. Don't sleep
Right.
on, because I'm not gonna like throw out I'm not gonna throw out actual numbers. But what I will tell you is the guys who are getting into those programs for those big companies, they are doing very well, right?
Oh, I bet.
But they're working their ass off. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
if you go into that type of management, high level, fast paced management, you're gonna work your ass off. But
Yeah, it's not just playing basketball. You're just chilling.
not like Sergeant Major going to the gym at freaking 10 o'clock in the morning because he I've only got so much. I've only got so much of that life left. Here doing this first sergeant life, but um, it's good. And say you're a young service member in your first 4 years. Like my advice to you, if you want to do it, you need to get with your installation skill bridge office, which you can Google it, and you need to go to your commander with a well drawn out plan laid out in your skill bridge application, because the only way that commander is going to accept that risk, because he is accepting it, he's accepting the risk of you leaving, and
Mm-hmm.
he's accepting that he is down one Marine or service member,
For
right?
sure.
So you got to go with a good plan. 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, freaking how, training objective, training schedule. Um, you know,
Not the five ums.
no, like a definition of what the position is: logistics manager, human resource, freaking, you know, and it doesn't have to always be management. Like you can do skill bridge for blue collar shit, skill bridge for welding, right? There's just
Fucking plumbing.
yeah,
Electricians.
and it's a really good program. And honestly, like the commander of our inspector instructor, Lieutenant Colonel, he's putting a lot of risk on it. I mean, my seat is going to be gapped for about 4 months.
Yeah,
But
that's no joke.
the thing about the Marine Corps, man, is there's always a gunnery sergeant really ready and willing to step up, and just how it is. Like, um, and it's good for that individual to get a observed fitness report, as a company first sergeant, right? So
Yeah.
it's a good program. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I had a meeting with them the other day, and what the operations manager told me, he's like, "You're gonna be in work boots more than you're in business casual." I'm like, out in the field, you know, um, getting out there with the crews, understanding the company, understanding company culture, um, and they're interested in a veterans hiring initiative for their drivers too. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's get out
That's
there.
amazing.
There's literally thousands of Army and Marine equipment operators and truck drivers getting out every year. Dallas Fort Worth is a big ass area. Like,
Oh, insane for veterans.
and the transition services for operations, like commercial driver's license and like heavy equipment operating, all that. There's phenomenal skill bridge opportunities for that too.
I was
Like,
going to say there's got to be veterans benefits and stuff like
yep,
that to get around any costs associated.
you can go, say you wanted to be a heavy equipment operator, right? And that's what you want to do in your next career. It's a great career. Our younger brother Patrick is a union uh, equipment operator, right? It's a great career. Um, you can go up to the heavy equipment or heavy construction academy in New Hampshire,
Mm-hmm.
Bridge, get some certificates, and they have like a 90% job placement rate across the country.
Fucking
And
A.
I mean, they said over 90% job placement. When I
Go to
told
work, people.
Yeah, when I told them Dallas, they laughed like, "Oh, that's easy," But I'm not getting into operating. I considered it just because I don't really want to manage people and problems anymore. But whatever.
Yeah. So
Um,
you're still going to be doing obviously you're going to be still doing the constellation group thing while you're doing this.
yeah, yeah.
And the goal, I guess, end goal for you is going to be you're going to work for this company when you get out,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then rock and roll with Constellation Group 138.
Yep. And that's always that's always kind of I mean, the end goal for that really, maybe once a month course, pistol fundamentals, rifle fundamentals, long range fundamentals.
Okay.
Though long range is not an area that I'm qualified to instruct. Victor is. Um, I'll get there someday, hopefully. But and that's like a Saturday, one weekend a month or so. Maybe we do like one weekend where we train, one weekend where we get our own training, flip flopping every month.
Gotcha.
And then personal classes. There's a couple local ranges where we could hold personal classes pretty easily, right? So if you're the type of person who is more inclined to do a private class, there's accessible ranges. But yeah,
Are you guys running a YouTube as well?
we will be. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been shooting content. We're working on our first video.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Well, you'll have to let me know what that page is.
The I just lost it. Sorry, but no. What I'm gonna say, the skill bridge is it gives you a good just interim time to work off the military experience into the civilian life. And for me, man, dude, I've been Geo Bachelor for 3 years.
Crazy.
In the first 10 months of that, I was in Oki in Korea, Japan and Korea, and my
Yep.
family, because we had some pretty big family tragedy happen, right? So I'm almost on 3 years of not seeing my kids every night. So it's like it's pretty
How
great.
old? How old?
13 and 10.
Crazy. Boys, girls?
Uh, 13-year-old is girl and 10-year-old's boy.
Man, that would be nuts. It's so funny because I talked about it with my wife, because people ask me all the time, do I miss my job? And I miss it every single day. But looking at it now, my daughter's 5, and I don't know how guys that I used to work with that had older kids or had kids in general. I had my kid later on in my career, pretty much in my twilight, and they would leave and they'd be gone with me, 6, 7, 8 months, back and forth, and they'd been doing it their whole career. And some of these guys, 28 years, and I can't even. I go to Dallas almost every other month for card stuff, sports cards, and cards, people, sports cards with a D. Not buying Porsches and Ferraris. And I'm missing the hell out of my daughter. And I'm like, I could not fucking imagine that, and it's funny on deployment, it's a little different. I think your brain, right when you leave, it's hard. You're like, fuck, really miss them. And then you get in the groove of work and deployment life, and that becomes your life. And then you find out that the clock starts getting close to when you're supposed to leave. And then those feelings start to kind of bubble back up again. You're like, fuck, man, I really want to get the fuck home. I kind of miss my family. I could only imagine being away and not being able to do that every night. That would be fucking hard.
Well, there's an age, they get to an age where, I think it's around 10 where they really get to be, what I'm saying? Like, and
Say that again. They get to be what?
they're over it. Like,
Uh-huh.
when they're younger, like kids are really resilient, but like when, 10, 13 years old, like, I mean, these are independent thinking children, right? They're
Right.
they are humans, right?
I mean, and 13 and 10, right, you said?
Mhm.
Like, those are some impressionable years, and that's no joke, man.
That leaves, 13-year-old and 10-year-old, when you're gone to be raised by one person. And it's like,
Shout outs to your wife, because that can't be fucking easy.
yeah, no, it's not, and my wife also takes care of her sister-in-law who's disabled, and was taking care of her mother-in-law until we had to move her out. So yeah, it's been,
Wow.
a lot of people, man, a lot of people have hit me up like, you're retiring? I'm like, yeah, man, like it's time. You know what I mean? Like I would have been considered for sergeant major this year, but you just got to take a look at, what's important, dude. And, the likelihood, the frequency of deployments after this, like, are very high. I know exactly where I would have gone. The overall division that I would have gone in, I would have deployed multiple times. Like, no, I mean, it's been fun. It's been 2 decades, but it's time to refocus and move on to something else. And
The service member sacrifice is, to me, been diminished over the years. I feel like it only gets worse over time, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass, and it's just because I don't need the fucking pat on the back.
Right.
But I feel like everyone that's still in, that's gone from their families, women, men, you fucking name it. It's fucking hard. And just because there's not a bunch of fucking bombs going off, and we're not in peak wartime or whatever, anyone wants to talk about, there's people still gone. And just because maybe they're staying, some people will be like, well, they're just on a ship hanging out. It's like, you think that's fucking fun?
Yeah.
You think they're making the best time of it. I can tell you that. But they would much fucking rather be on the Wi-Fi, chilling at their house with their kids, watching Bluey, and hanging out with their loved ones.
One thing I've had an issue with for a while, and I don't know if it's just a Marine Corps thing, but there's a whole like not a real deployment attitude about floats and just the rotational trips to Japan or the Middle East, not combat, right?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, like, first of all, you're saying something is not a real deployment, but my question is, are you prepared for a real deployment, right? Are you prepared for combat? Second of all, I guarantee you it's a real deployment to your family, right? Because
100%.
You ain't there for that spouse. You ain't there for those kids. Your parents are, you know, your parents might be glued to freaking standard bullshit news where everything is negative, right? And they think that
Right.
World War III is going to pop off in the next. Well, who
Tomorrow.
knows what could happen, right?
2 hours.
There's just a
It's happening in 2 hours.
yeah. So I mean, it's a real deployment to your family, so you ought to treat it like it.
I think everyone out there should treat it like that. I feel like no one should be taking any service member, the wife as well, for granted. The people that aren't directly involved with the military, if that makes sense. Like you're just living your life. You work at Amazon, and you're like, yeah, go home day, drive the truck. Yeah, cool. And I don't need people fucking every day like, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. And I'm not asking for that either. I'm just saying that I don't feel like the news, or I guess the media in general, kind of blows these days on both sides. It does blow. I don't know. I feel like it's like more about worrying about what everyone fucking looks like and whatever they associate with, instead of like the stuff that kind of matters. It's like, man, I remember I used to see those videos all the time of people coming home. And I always used to love those. There's like Insta kind of tier videos. You see the guy surprises his brother he hasn't seen for fucking however many years, or the mom comes home and surprises their kid at homecoming. And those videos have all kind of disappeared. And I feel like I don't like those videos. I mean, I like them, but I don't like them. But I don't know, man. I don't think the military and people that are involved with the military should be taken for granted. I really don't. Sometimes I think some generations don't realize how fucking hard it is for people. Even though I always was able to call my wife, and yes, there are levels to deployment. There are different levels, 100%. I mean, I stayed on a fucking golf course for one of mine, but I still miss my wife. I still miss my kid. So I don't know.
You've got, sitting on a boat. You can only work out so much in some cases, right? The food is, not the best, even though somehow it's served better to the chiefs, right? you know, there's a lot of time for a lot of people on those type of deployments to kind of sit there and contemplate their freaking life, right? And
100%.
And the same thing with being stationed overseas. Like Okinawa is a semi-tropical freaking island. It really is paradise to a lot of people, but I'll tell you right now, there's a high number of people who deal with some severe adjustment disorder when they go over there, right?
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I mean, I was there in Kadena, and it's fucking weird, man. It's just weird when you're away. I don't care what anybody says. It's weird.
Yeah.
So, you feel fine, especially the more you do it. You're like, oh, okay, yep, gotta go. Love you, this and that. But
no, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's good, and to lead into the nonprofit side of things that I do.
Yeah.
I'm a member of somewhat represent Patrol Base Abate, which is a nationwide veterans organization, dedicated to combating veteran suicide and providing a tribe for all veterans. And I'm talking like all veterans, bro. I'm talking like you just got out after 2 years or whatever you did honorably, to World War II veterans, right? And it's named after Sergeant Matthew Abate, who's killed in action in December of 2010. He's a posthumous Navy Cross recipient. He's a scout sniper. It was founded by his former platoon leader, Thomas Schumann, who's a major with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines right now. And, what I've found is it's just an organization where you can get veterans together and go to a brewery meetup or go do a workout, right? Go to the range, teach, and it's been fun, man. It's they've got a piece of land up in Montana on a freaking mountain. Looks like a Montana postcard. Softly donated a whole freaking gym to them up there, and
oh wow,
do retreats. They fund freaking veterans free of charge to go up there and do retreats. Trying to get Mason and I to go do the strength retreat actually, maybe this summer. We're supposed to.
Oh, that'd be badass.
Yeah, we were supposed to go last year, but it kind of fell through, mostly on the part of my inability to plan. But No, it's a good organization.
Just like your brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, um, it's an organization that is like grassroots. Like you don't have to be a Purple Heart recipient or a special operator or insert like niche community within the veteran community, right? It's just for everybody, And what I have found, talking about people around the last two generations, I think you could say, is you can have a Phantom Fury like Fallujah door kicker, like having a conversation with a guy who like just got out, who was a mechanic for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, and one thing I'll tell you, one thing about veterans that is like continuous and constant is shit talking, and there's plenty of that. It's great.
100%.
Yeah, especially on the range. But,
That's so, and people don't understand. For military members, that is depending on the community as well. It is a huge fucking portion that you will end up missing, and it is impossible so far to find. And it's funny because you see like the cancel culture shit out there, and I go, bro, if you were in a fucking shop, you would lose, your head would explode.
No, like it's so funny too because like I'll do these Toys for Tots events. Toys for Tots drive is a Marine Corps. And I'll go in there in my blues and like I'll walk up to like the rooftop bar or whatever, whoever's handling it. I'll go get my beer, and the veterans will just come over to us and they'll just start talking shit. Like they're like you
I love it.
Pretty young to be a fucking first sergeant. What the hell did you do? Blah blah. Like you're missing good conduct medal stars. I'm like whatever. How. And
quit busting my balls, man.
Whatever. Give me some money for some toys.
That's right.
It's fun, dude. So
that camaraderie is hard to find. What's the name of the group again?
Patrol Base Abate.
And I'll make sure that's in the description of the YouTube.
Yep. There's local chapters all over the country. You can go on the website, log in. You'll be connected with at least the closest chapter captain.
Wow. How long have you been affiliated with them?
I was the Austin chapter captain for probably from about March of 2021 to about December of 2021. And
wow.
I passed it off to a former Army officer here, Trey Weber, great guy. And, I may get back to like some type of position within the organization eventually.
Okay.
I've held a couple pistol marksmanship clinics for them, instructed for them. So, I have a relationship with their like gun club realm pretty much.
Very cool.
Stuff like that's hard, man. Cause it's all contingent on ammunition donation, stuff like that. And it's a challenge to get, to companies to trust you enough to send you a few thousand rounds of ammunition. They don't know.
100%.
And then you owe them, you don't owe them, but it's good to give them props back on social media and keeps that stuff going. Right. So, luckily here in Texas, a lot of these veterans already have ammo stockpiles and value, not even a stockpile. They value showing up with a couple hundred rounds with a deliberate training plan, and you can turn a couple hundred rounds into a 3-hour freaking clinic.
Yep.
It's good. It's a good thing. Patrol Base Abate for any veteran, and it's something I'm proud to be a part of, and plan on at least being a member and helping out for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's amazing. Any veterans out there listening or watching, I would definitely urge you, if you've been kind of missing camaraderie, to find the right group. And I say the right group, this is a great resource to use. It's coming from a trusted source, for that matter. I mean, you don't need to take my word for it. You can do your own investigative hunting and Googling. But it sounds great to me, and it's never good to be alone. Like, even if you have your family, it sometimes is nice to talk to old buddies or new buddies that have the same like-minded background as you do. So don't be sitting there all by your lonesome and thinking, woe is me, and life blows, and I don't got any friends anymore. There are plenty of opportunities out there if you, it's like that thing, you got to put yourself out there, man. You got to kind of do it. But Shamus, before I let you go, I just want to thank you for spending the time to get on. I know we had a little bit of phone tag back and forth, and we finally made it happen. I'll be sure to tell your brother next week when he's on that you're a way better guest, and much stronger and smarter. And you're like a Marine Corps Zac Efron, man.
Man, I don't think anyone's stronger than Mason, man.
No, I told him last week, a couple weeks ago when he was on the show, I was like, "You're the strongest guy in the military, man."
Dude,
and he's like, "Don't say that."
when we were in high school working for my father, right? My dad and I would carry 2 of the concrete forms at a time, right? And that's about 80 pounds in an awkward way. It's a rectangle.
Yeah.
Mason would carry 4 at a time. So, it's that he lost that Instagram for no reason, killed his freaking account. Because
I know.
He had a good thing going there, and so really what we need to do is peer pressure him into moving back to New England, buying the house that we grew up in, so he can turn my old man's barn into the freaking hound dog strength and conditioning.
He was telling me about it, man.
Telling you, we got to get him into it. But
I think that'll be that sounds like a no-brainer. Just got to convince the wife too, you know.
Yeah, well, Molly is about the happiest person I freaking the happiest and most perfect person for my brother, right? So
100%.
Yeah, man. So but yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity. These are always fun to do, and I guess parting words like learn, train, stay relevant in anything you do,
100%, man. And thanks again. Everyone check out his the IG Constellation Group 138. And links will be in the description for everything else. Like, comment, subscribe to Tasty Brains Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the major streaming platforms. And Paulie Donuts on Twitter if you're looking for cardboard with dudes on it. Other than that, thanks again. Peace.
Have a good one.